Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we are reviewing Venom, which just came out last week.
It's kind of a controversial movie among...
For sure.
Among the general public. Maybe not necessarily fans. I think for the most part, fans really liked it.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm super excited to talk about it.
I did not hate it, surprisingly. I thought I would, because of all the comparisons to, like, Catwoman and stuff like that.
Oh, that was fucking bullshit.
Yeah, Lady Gaga fans. I blame
Screw
them.
whoever
I
said
blame
that.
them.
That was
But before we get into that, just a reminder, this is our 92nd episode. We are counting down to our 100th episode, which will happen in early December, I believe. And we have a big surprise. Can't talk about it yet, but only 8 more episodes to go after this.
Yep.
It's going by fast. In this episode, we'll be breaking down the news from the past week.
A lot of news.
Yeah, a ton of news.
Yeah, because of New York Comic Con.
Yeah, and a lot of them are videos. There's the Aquaman extended video. There's the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse official trailer 2. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about Rosie Perez being cast in Birds of Prey. I think that's like the one non-video news item. Uh-huh. There's 2 trailers for Daredevil Season 3, a Titans final trailer, and then a Harley Quinn animated series first look. So, yeah, a ton of stuff to go over and break down.
The news itself could almost be the entire episode. But yeah, after that, we'll get into the Venom review.
Yeah, just real quick, we save this for the end of the episode, but right now we are trying to get to 200 ratings, specifically on iTunes, because Rotten Tomatoes has recently changed their standards for what qualifies as a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic, which includes podcasts now. Yeah. All we need is 200 ratings, and we meet all of the criteria. So we've been trying to get there, and we have been getting ratings, but a few people have also been generous enough to give us reviews. So we just wanted to give them a quick shout out.
Yeah, we super appreciate it. Thank you very much to DNick290, Badewalker, Jazz P, Lil Chef 118, and Larry Nuki. I think that's how you pronounce that. Thanks to all of you for your generosity.
Yeah, you guys say fantastic things. I don't deserve it, but...
Yeah, you don't deserve it. I do.
And neither do you.
Thanks again. Yeah, if you guys could help us out with reaching 200 ratings on iTunes, please do so. And if you want to give a review as well, that would be fantastic. So this Thursday on Patreon, we will be releasing bonus content for our patrons in the form of our secret project that we've been working on for the past month that the general public doesn't have access to yet. But it'll be like the second episode of that. So patrons, look forward to that this Thursday. If you want to join our Patreon, go ahead and go to patreon.com/dynamicduel. And for just $2 a month, you get access to weekly bonus content, which is awesome. So check that out for sure. One of our main goals for the Patreon account is to reach 25 patrons, at which point we will be printing out physical copies of the Dynamic Duel No Prize that we award each week to a listener that gives our favorite answer to the question of the week. And speaking of no prizes,
it's no prize time. So No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that I personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week's question was, who would you have cast as Huntress and Black Canary? This, of course, stemming from the news that those 2 roles have been cast in Birds of Prey.
Right.
So this was a tough one.
Yeah, a lot of great answers, a lot of great half answers,
yes.
I guess.
With almost every answer that we received, I really, really liked one of those answers and really kind of didn't really care for the other one. Ultimately, I awarded the No Prize to 2 people who sort of gave my 2 favorite actresses for the individual roles. But
yeah, for Black Canary and for Huntress.
Yeah. Honorable mention goes to Ariana Quadra for her answer of Diane Kruger as Black Canary and Rosario Dawson as Huntress, which was fantastic choices. Like, I totally loved Diane Kruger ever since Troy. And Rosario Dawson, total badass.
They may have been aged out of the parts by this point now, though. They're both in their early 40s, late 30s, I think.
Yeah, it'd be hard to carry a franchise with them. But honorable mention also goes to Joel Seagrave, who gave the answer of Tatiana Maslany, she's the Orphan Black actress for Black Canary, and Eliza Dushku as Huntress.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I can see both of those actresses in those roles.
I could see Tatiana Maslany, playing Huntress as well as Black Canary. She could do so many roles.
Yeah.
I guess that's what she's known for.
Yeah, another honorable mention goes to John and Adam Spees, who gave the answers of Natalie Dormer as Black Canary and Marie Avgeropoulos as Huntress.
They actually gave this answer in their own podcast, Blast from Our Past podcast, which we guest starred on. When they sent us their answer, they were like, just the podcast is our answer. So we put it in this list.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. In that episode, we talked about the Batman animated series 90s cartoon show, as well as the X-Men 90s cartoon show. So definitely check that out if you get a chance, if you're a fan of those shows, because their podcast is just awesome.
It's a great podcast.
Yeah. Again, it's called the Blast from Our Past podcast.
Yeah, but to move on to the winners of the No Prize, we are giving it to Jacob Bell, who gave the answer Blake Lively for Black Canary and Liv Tyler as Huntress.
That's great right there.
It is. Blake Lively as Black Canary, that was always my dream cast. Yeah. Liv Tyler is probably a little bit too like...
Well, she's like a decade older than Blake Lively. So
yeah, and she's always been very like low energy, very soft spoken.
Uh-huh.
I don't quite see her as being like the fierce Helena Bertinelli, from the comics.
Uh-huh.
And then we're also giving the No Prize to Mia Moraes, who gave the answer Trisha Paytas as Black Canary.
I don't know who that is.
But the answer of Lily Collins as Huntress was fantastic. I love Lily Collins. She's great. She would make a fantastic Huntress. Great answer.
Yeah. So, yeah, congrats to Jacob Bell and Mia Moraes. You guys both get the Dynamic Duel No Prize for this week. If you want to win a Dynamic Duel No Prize, go ahead and listen to later on this episode when we ask you guys another question of the week. With that out of the way,
on to the news. So late last week, Warner Brothers unveiled an extended video. It's 5 minutes long of Aquaman footage.
Yeah, that was crazy when I saw that. I was like, wow, what's happening here?
Yeah, this whole trailer literally left me with tears in my eyes. It's so beautiful.
Oh my God.
So fantastic.
The action looks amazing. That's the thing that blew me away. The action and just the cinematography is so bright, so colorful, so amazing. These set pieces, I just want to go there.
Right? Like, I can't believe someone imagined some of these places, some of these, like, set designs. It's just phenomenal. It's great.
For both of these trailers for Aquaman, I just am blown away by how expensive the movie feels.
It feels huge. The production value on this must have been astronomical.
Like a $300 movie. I mean, like
what?
$300 million movie.
Seriously. So much money every frame. Yeah, it starts off with Jason Momoa, Arthur Curry, sort of like talking about his origin, I guess, his parents.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The first shot is actually of a snow globe of a lighthouse sitting on top of an H.P. Lovecraft book, which we know James Wan is like a big horror fan, and H.P. Lovecraft deals with like underwater monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was a good call out. But we get to see, basically, it's the love story between his mom, Queen Atlanta, and his father, Tom Curry. They're in love, but she has to leave. And then, we see Aquaman, grown up, and he's lifting us up a submarine. But then the extended video really gets into the meat of what it is. And it's really like two action set pieces. I don't even want to say action, because the first one it's more like an Indiana Jones exploratory kind of piece. They're in the desert. They find these lost remains of Atlantis, which is kind of cool.
I'm guessing it's like one of the cities of Atlantis, and that's why the Atlanteans don't live there anymore, or like the city moved at some point or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Arthur Curry doesn't say that as they're walking up the sand dune. He's like, there's no way Atlantis was this far inland. But yeah, it just makes you wonder, like, what happened to Atlantis? What happened to the city? It's a strange line. It's a strange scene. It looks cool. Yep. It looks really, really cool. Just like this ancient city. And even Jason Momoa can't help himself just being Jason Momoa. It's badass.
He's a little bombastic.
He is.
It's not in keeping with the character of Arthur Curry that I know of from the comics.
Yeah. Well, what is that
a little
character?
bit off.
What is that character?
He's a little bit more bland. He's a little bit more generic. He's not bombastic. I wouldn't describe him as that.
It's true.
But in that regard, I think that Jason Momoa is perhaps adding some depth to the character that didn't exist prior. You look at characters like Iron Man, who prior to the Iron Man movie was a little bit of the same. He wasn't defined through his humor.
Right. He wasn't like a smartass.
Right. He was heavily defined as a character by his alcoholism and a straightforward attitude. But it wasn't until, Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal, which was at the time to me a little bit unfamiliar in regards to the character, but it totally came to define Tony Stark going forward from there, which I came to appreciate because it did add depth. Now we know Tony Stark as the eccentric billionaire.
Yeah, Jason Momoa definitely isn't selling like a regal Aquaman, you know?
Right.
He's definitely more of a guy who just, you know, grew up in the normal world. So I don't mind it.
Who perhaps drinks heavily or something, you know?
Yeah, he does. We know that
Party
from the
guy.
Justice League film. Yeah.
But it will be interesting if he does eventually become closer to the Aquaman that we all know and love from the comics towards the end of the film. That will be his character arc, to go from this guy who is the opposite of royalty and go into a more mature character.
Yeah. In this scene, you know, they activate this Atlantean machine in kind of a funny way where she takes a sweat and he's like, we could have just peed on it. I laughed at that. But it's, you know, it's
a good thing that her hand didn't like move south lower and just like extract the urine from his groin.
Right.
There's probably a lot more there in his bladder.
Probably, maybe.
Yeah.
But the machine activates like a hologram, and I think it's King Atlan, the first king of Atlantis, who actually sank Atlantis. And he's talking about his trident. So now we know sort of like the story. They're looking for this trident. And we haven't really got that in previous trailers.
Right.
But
and they're trying to find it, I assume, before Orm can find it?
Right, yeah, I think so. But, you know, as he's talking about Atlantis, we get these really great scenes just like of looking at like ancient Atlantis and like underwater Atlantis.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's amazing. It almost looks like Asgard on steroids.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's insane.
It is insane. There's so much detail in every frame. It's ridiculous. Once he starts talking about the trident and, you know, it has the power of Atlantis. Once the hologram is done, she like breaks the key. And then he's like, oh, shouldn't we have at least written the message down? It was kind of another funny scene. He's like, blah, 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 trident. But then, you know, we get some more like quick cuts of different scenes, but it really leads into Black Manta and some like Atlantean soldiers against Mera and Arthur.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Black Manta, such a badass. He looks so flippin' cool.
Yeah, I'm glad we pit him against Black Panther
I know.
In our duel episode.
It was such a good matchup. I'm really glad we did it. Arthur, you know, he definitely seems to be holding his own, like doing like this flip kick against Black Manta, which was kind of cool.
He's a fighter.
Yeah, definitely. Mera is on the run, running across rooftops as these soldiers are just like tearing straight through walls. It's pretty cool. The camera work is pretty amazing.
The camera work is the most impressive thing about this action scene. I've never seen camera work quite as kinetic as this, where it's like darting through windows and stuff like that and really tracking along with the action in a way that's impossible to do physically. But
right.
Somehow they pull it off. It's movie making magic. Really.
It is, for sure. It's something that, you know, you can't do in comics, right?
Right.
And it just brings so much energy to the scene.
Yeah.
But, you know, that ends with one of the soldiers getting shot on Mera. And then we get more action scenes throughout the rest of the video of Orm and Arthur Curry fighting underwater. That looks really cool.
That's going to be a highlight of the movie, I feel like. We also get a lot of the underwater battle scenes between like the sharks versus the alligators versus the seahorses and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Nicole Kidman being a badass with her trident.
Yeah, I didn't know she was going to have an action scene in this movie.
No, I didn't know either.
It looks like she's protecting her family. Maybe they find out that she's living with this family at some point.
Yeah.
And that's why she has to leave, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think so. They definitely de-aged her for this. I'm wondering what role she's going to serve later on in the film. I'm not sure. But we get to see more of the trench and more of that really, really cool scene of him like carrying a flare down into the water. Those monsters look awesome. And then it ends with this pretty cool line of like, Atlantis has always had a king. Mera's talking to Arthur.
This was a great moment.
Yeah, and she's like, we need something more. And Arthur's like, well, what's greater than a king? And she's like, a hero. And then it's the coolest shot ever.
It's well timed with the music and the moment.
Super well timed. It's just like this powerful, cathartic moment of Aquaman just like stepping out of this waterfall with the trident in his classic costume. Hair's all wet. Just pins his trident to the ground. So badass. Ugh. So great.
I'm wondering if the movie can actually live up to this moment from the trailer, because it's a lot of elements that work together to create this magical moment.
It will. I absolutely will.
Okay.
It will. I have so much faith in James Wan. I can't wait for this film.
He should be commended for creating what looks to be just a magical movie that presents a lot of things that we have never seen before in film.
Yeah.
In regards to the action, in regards to this world that he's creating, it looks on par with something like Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. I think out of all of its competition for its opening weekend, it's going to come out with the top spot. It's facing fierce competition from Bumblebee, from Mary Poppins, from Sherlock Holmes
and Watson.
Holmes and Watson, yeah.
And then that Untitled Deadpool Christmas special thing.
Right, yeah.
We're not exactly sure if that's just a PG-13 of Deadpool 2 or not. I mean, I'm beginning to think it's not going to be just that.
Right.
That's probably the one I'm most concerned about. This all kind of brings us to our question of the week. So of the 4 other major films opening in the same time frame as Aquaman, including Bumblebee, Mary Poppins, Holmes and Watson, and the Untitled Deadpool Christmas special, tell us why you think Aquaman has the best shot at winning the weekend box office. Or why not?
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking with
is.
all those movies kind of competing against
yeah.
each other. They're just going to consume each other, and I hope that Aquaman's box office doesn't suffer as a result. Again, I do think it'll win the weekend, but if it doesn't, I'm kind of curious which one will take it over.
Does this trailer make you nervous for Deadpool?
No, I don't care if Deadpool makes money or not, because we already have Deadpool 2. So it's kind of more like a joke Christmas special kind of thing, I think. So I don't think it was made necessarily to make money, but more to facilitate the brand of Deadpool. Yeah.
I wish they weren't doing it. I hate them.
But yeah, post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com, and we will pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. Moving on from Aquaman into Spider-Man, we got the official second trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I think this is the best trailer for this movie by far. They've all been really impressive.
Yeah.
But this one was a great way to sell the movie to general audiences who weren't still quite clear on what the concept is. Because it's Peter Parker that introduces the film, and he kind of gives us narration, and you get short clips of animated scenes that resemble the Sam Raimi films, where he's talking about, like, you know who I am, I've saved the world, you know, and we see him stopping the train from Spider-Man 2, and just
like the car through the window.
Yeah, it's very familiar, and I think that's a great lead-in to what is going to be a more unfamiliar universe for most moviegoers.
It seems kind of like a Deadpool version of Spider-Man in that, like, he's self-aware. He knows he's a comic book. He did a Christmas album.
Yeah, and the comic book, and he has a cereal and a So-So popsicle. That was hilarious because I've had that popsicle, and that's the one with, like, the gummed eyes that are on it. They have other Marvel versions of it, but yeah, that was a shitty looking popsicle. It looked like it was photographed on, like, a plastic plate or something. It's funny. But yeah, it transitions from there into the Miles Morales Ultimate Universe, and we get a rehash of the scene where he tells his dad, "I love you," which pays off later on in this trailer, where he tells his dad he loves him again while in the Spider-Man costume.
Right, and the dad's like, "What?"
Wait, what? It looks like the Kingpin and some other supervillains are trying to open a dimensional gateway, and that's what brings Spider-Man through to this world.
So that was the Kingpin.
Yes, and it's voiced by Liev Schreiber.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's a pretty good Kingpin voice, I think. I like the character design on all these guys, but he looks particularly menacing here, but Kingpin does.
He does.
And so Spider-Man comes into the Ultimate Universe and basically tells Miles, like, I'm from this normal universe, and you're from this, like, weird dinky universe, using French fries as metaphors. But he trains Miles on how to be Spider-Man. And in the process, we get introduced to all these other characters that are going to be in the movie.
They're pretty cool introductions.
Yeah, I like the introductions.
Gwen Stacy with, like, the drums. I was like, I was really getting into the trailer.
Yeah, we've seen her in those aspen trees before, but yeah, like, her universe is very pink. She's a musician in her universe. She plays the drums. She's in a band. This is the universe where Gwen Stacy was bit by the radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker. We also get introductions to Spider-Man War, voiced by Nick Cage.
It's a really quick introduction.
Yeah, it's a really quick introduction. It looks pretty cool, though. And we also see Spider, who is Penny Parker, who controls the spider robot. So that's pretty cool. I wasn't expecting to see her, but her art style, the art style in each of these characters is pretty spot on for the universe that they come from.
Yeah.
Like, Penny Parker, she looks like an anime character.
Right.
And Peter Porker looks like a Looney Tunes character. He looks almost exactly like Porky Pig. And John Mulaney's voice is just fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's great. Yeah.
I like how Peter Parker's like, this can't get any weirder. And he's like, it can get weirder. I have no idea why his hand is wet, though, or his body is wet.
Right.
After that, we get just kind of like quick flashes about what the rest of the movie is about. It looks like Kingpin is teaming up with enemies like Tombstone and the Scorpion to fight the Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's a different take on Scorpion. Is that like the ultimate version?
Yeah, it is. Green Goblin's in it too, and it's the ultimate version of him as well.
We see Prowler as well, I think.
Yeah, Prowler. all great designs, I think.
I still just love the animation of this whole thing. Is it like a little choppy again, so it looks like almost like it's stop motion or something like that?
Yeah, lower frame rate.
Right, exactly. It brings a lot of charm to it.
Yeah, definitely. The last scene is Miles and Peter and Spider-Man Noir and Peter Porker and all those guys. They're, I guess, hiding in Miles' room where Gonky is. Or Gonk, I don't know how to pronounce his name. But it's his best friend. And he's reading a Spider-Man comic book, it looks like. And they're trying to remain hidden by sticking to the walls as, like, a singular spider.
Right.
But, of course, you know, Spider-Ham blows the cover by saying, do animals talk in this universe? Because I don't want to freak him out.
That was hilarious.
It was pretty good. I really like that joke. In all, every time I see new marketing for this movie, I get more and more excited for it. Especially that final shot where like Miles Morales takes that opening scene and really makes it his own. Where Peter Parker was standing on that gargoyle looking over New York City. This time it's Miles Morales, and he kind of stamps his own mark on it.
Yeah, he's literally putting his own mark on it.
Yeah, it's vandalism, but it's still badass.
It's a bumper sticker. It's who's going to complain? No one's going to see it. I've been more excited for this than like any other Marvel movie, I think, in a really long time.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Just because of its artistic style?
I think so. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's certainly more styled than other animated Marvel and DC films that have come out recently, such as like Lego Batman.
Oh yeah,
or Teen Titans Go or something like that.
Yeah. So in other news, Rosie Perez has been cast as Renee Montoya in the Birds of Prey film, which in one sense is kind of perfect casting.
She's a little bit older.
She is. That's the other sense. It was a definite surprise to me. I thought they would go for someone younger, for someone who, could carry a franchise for many years to come.
Right. Well, in the comics, the Question is Victor Sage, and he is the mentor to Renee Montoya, who becomes the second Question. So it looks like in this Birds of Prey movie, they're kind of swapping that in that it seems like Renee Montoya is going to be the mentor character to perhaps some of these younger super heroines.
I don't know. Honestly, if that's the case, she may just be a cop. She may just be a Gotham City police officer, which I could totally see her selling, Oh,
so you don't think we'll see her as the Question?
I'm starting to have doubts because of this casting. Okay. If it was a younger casting, I think maybe you would have, like a pretty solid journey from her being a detective to being the Question. But I think this may be a smaller role than I initially thought.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because, they need some kind of face for the police force in Gotham City in general. So why not have it be Renee Montoya?
That makes sense.
The Question may not factor into this at all.
Which is kind of a shame. I do like the character of the Question.
Yeah. It still leaves room for Victor Sage to be the Question. But it kind of maybe puts the character of Renee Montoya in a position in the cinematic realm, at least, of never being the Question.
Yeah, it leaves both options open-ended.
Yeah, it does. I remember her from films like Do the Right Thing, White Men Can't Jump. I don't think I ever saw that.
She was
full
in
movie.
Pineapple Express. So it was the last thing I saw her in.
She was. Yeah, she was a cop in that, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm thinking she's going to be a pretty badass detective. But yeah, again, it was just a big surprise to me. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it initially. But
quite the diverse cast that they have going here now.
Yeah, for sure. She's, of course, joining Journey Smollett-Bell and Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Margot Robbie in the film. We don't know who is going to play Black Mask yet, and we don't know who's going to play Cassandra Cain yet.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing what else they could do with this. I don't have 100% confidence in the project yet, I would say. But, I'm just waiting for more information. We have rumors of what the story is going to be, and that sounds like a badass story.
Right.
But hopefully Kathy Yan can pull it off, the director.
Right. All right, moving on to the first trailers for Daredevil Season 3. They're a little bit late coming, considering that the third season actually debuts in just like a week, actually.
Right.
Yeah. But I think that's why they gave us 2 right away. We got 2 Daredevil Season 3 trailers. The first one is more about Matt Murdock, and we see him kind of out from under the rubble that he was stuck under from the Defenders television show.
Yeah.
Can you believe that it's actually been that long since we've had a Daredevil season?
Yeah, since like last year.
Since season 2. No, 2 years ago.
What?
Since season 2, we've had 2 seasons of Luke Cage, 2 Iron Fist seasons, a Defenders, and a Jessica Jones.
That's true.
Yeah, it's been a while. But it's good to have him back, especially with the Kingpin back.
Heck yeah.
In this trailer, we see that Kingpin strikes a deal, and he's able to get released on parole, it looks like, from prison. and he's out to seek revenge against Matt Murdock and just make his life a living hell. So it seems to be at least partially adapting the Born Again storyline, in which the Kingpin knows Daredevil's secret identity. And you can listen to more about that in our Daredevil versus Nightwing duel episode that we did a few months ago.
And I'm not missing anything, right? Like, Kingpin doesn't currently know Matt Murdock's identity. Like, he'll learn it in this season,
Well,
it looks like.
At the end of Daredevil season 2, it seemed like he was this close to figuring it all out. He was following a paper trail that would have revealed that Matt Murdock was Daredevil, because that was his kind of project while he was in prison, just passing time, was trying to figure out who this guy is. The action looks spectacular in this trailer. It looks like we have another hallway fight. This time it takes place in the prison. And I heard that it's just amazing from people who have seen the first few episodes of the show so far.
Both trailers are really intense. Like,
yeah, they are.
Really intense.
Yeah. Matt's back to wearing his black outfit from the initial season 1. I think the reason he's wearing the black costume is because, as we see at the end of this trailer, there's a new guy who's wearing the Daredevil costume, and he's being a villain, basically. So I think in order to distinguish himself from that evil Daredevil, Matt has taken on his old costume so that he doesn't get confused by the authorities or from other people.
I don't know if that's the case, because he's wearing his black costume before he even meets the new Daredevil.
But we don't necessarily know the chronology of events here. It could be that this new Daredevil has been Daredevil for quite some time at this point.
True, maybe.
So it is cool, though. I mean, they're heavily implying that this new Daredevil is Bullseye, just the way he's throwing things and how accurate he is at throwing and marksmanship and stuff like that. And he has a gun at the very end of the trailer.
It's kind of like a callback to like the famous Daredevil comic book cover where he's like pointing a gun.
Oh, right. Yeah. It was like No More Mr. Nice Guy or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. Part of Frank Miller's run. It is very reminiscent of that. And Wilson Bethel looks pretty cool in the mask, I think. At one point, he was in the running to play Captain America. He was like in the top 3 contenders to play Captain America.
Oh, really?
And well, I'm still glad that Chris Evans got the role, because he's just perfect as Cap. It's nice to also see that Wilson Bethel still got a chance to play in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Because he seems like a pretty badass actor, especially in the next trailer that we get, where we get to see more regarding the character of who they're calling Agent Poindexter.
This is Bullseye, right?
It is.
Because I don't remember his name being Poindexter in our Bullseye versus Deadshot episode.
Yeah, his name was Lester.
Yeah.
They've never really revealed his name, so I'm wondering if the show is kind of taking liberty with that, or they're actually giving him a name.
I guess there's enough mystery around the character where they can do something like that successfully.
Right. Like maybe his name is Lester Poindexter or Dexter Lester or something like that. That'd be a weird name. But yeah, and at the end, it could turn out to all be an alias or something like that. So one never knows. But Kingpin is impressed with his skills as a corrupt FBI agent and hires him essentially to impersonate Daredevil.
Yeah.
The guy looks intense. He has a very intense look to him. His bone structure is like freaking gaunt as hell. So those are some sharp features, but his voice is pretty spot on into what I would imagine Bullseye's voice would be as well. And just the things that he does, where he's like shooting guys from far distances, nailing him with the headshot, and throwing knives into chests and stuff like that. He looks pretty badass.
Bullseye
and pretty unstable.
Has always been like a scary kind of villain, and that he's just like unpredictable and just so darn
talented,
efficient and talented. Yeah. I'm excited for this season.
I like one of the later shots where it looks like Bullseye's about to kill a guy by throwing a billy club through his head, and at the very last moment, Matt Murdock is able to catch it right before it hits the guy's face.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to this season. I don't have to wait long for it. Thank goodness. It comes out October 19th. So yeah, we'll definitely have the review up by the end of this month when we binge all those episodes.
Yeah, it's coming up soon. Moving on to DC television, we got our final trailer, the official team-up trailer for Titans, which comes out also this month. I think next week, actually.
Oh,
wow.
really?
Yeah. This debuted at New York Comic Con. It's not a long trailer. It's less than 2 minutes long.
It's my favorite trailer so far that they've released.
It's because of the song, isn't it?
It's not just because of that cool cover song by Marilyn Manson of Cry Little Sister.
It was the Lost Boys song.
Yeah, the song from the Lost Boys movie. It's such a great cover, and it fits so well with the visuals that we're seeing on the trailer.
Yeah.
But it also does a great job of showcasing each superhero's powers, I think, in a way that the previous trailers didn't. They feel more like their respective characters in this than they have at any previous point in the marketing, I think.
Yeah, this probably is also my favorite trailer, better than like last week's Netflix trailer.
It makes me want to be Robin and have a collapsible bow staff that I can use to just like point outward and then like have it extend and hit two guys on the sides of me. It's just so cool.
They are totally selling Robin, like in a way that no live action Robin, I mean, there's only been one, I guess,
Chris
ever
O'Donnell.
has. Yeah, he's such a badass in this. He looks like he's a badass.
Yeah, even Beast Boy is impressed. He's like, it's Robin.
Yeah. His reaction was my reaction.
Yeah, it was a great moment.
But, it sets up the story. It's definitely like a Rosemary's Baby kind of thing. Raven's the daughter of Trigon, and, this cult is trying to bring him back through her.
Right. We get to see her use her powers in this, too. She kind of like extends her soul self out of her body. And attack some people with it. It doesn't look quite like I thought it would. It doesn't look like a raven or anything.
It looks like a swarm of nhưng.
Yeah, they kind of form like a tentacle kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan. This has been getting good reviews, but they're also saying like it's not really the Titans that people know.
Right.
They're saying the acting is really good and the story grows on you for sure. So I'm glad that it's getting good reviews because these trailers don't inspire the highest degree of confidence when it comes to faithful interpretations of the characters. But I'm still definitely going to watch it for sure.
We see Beast Boy turn into a tiger. We see Starfire shoot her fire out.
Yeah, Beast Boy, like his introduction is like Raven stumbling in on him when he's like all bloody at the mouth and stuff like that. It's like the cult has him maybe trapped in the same place that she's trapped in. I don't know.
And she rescues him, and then it also looks like Starfire rescues Raven as well.
Yeah, and then they meet Robin, and he's just being a badass, taking fools out in the dark and shadow, just being really cool.
What do you think of the news that we heard that the reason that Robin is like branching away from Batman in this series is because he disagrees with Batman's methodology in that he kills people in this universe? Do you think that's true? Do you think it's been misinterpreted?
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, judging on how dark this is. I'm not happy about it. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like Batman will be that big of a character in this show. So I don't know. Hopefully they
don't fuck it up, DC.
I know.
If they did that.
They did that. Apparently they didn't fuck it up, though, because I keep hearing good things about it. There's some fascinating things in this trailer, like this guy just covered in blood and like the cult people with like blinking lights in their head. It's pretty crazy. It looks pretty crazy. And of course, we get that Avengers team up shot at the end where all of them are in frame and like, Beast Boy is a tiger and Raven is in her white form.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to next week just to get a taste of it.
Yeah. Too bad it doesn't all come out at one time. We did get the release schedule for the DC Universe shows.
Yes. Yep.
And it looks like we're actually getting Doom Patrol earlier than we thought we would.
Yeah, it's coming out next year. Brendan Fraser was on stage and he made a goof. He was like, "Oh yeah, it's coming out mid-December." That's not the case.
That's when Young Justice comes out.
Yes, yeah. And then Doom Patrol comes after that.
Right.
Another one of the shows for DC Universe that we got a sneak peek at was Harley Quinn. That's coming out next December.
Right, like more than a year from now. That's insane.
I'm surprised they gave us our first look so early.
Right.
But along with the first look came the news that Kelly Cuoco of The Big Bang Theory is voicing Harley Quinn. Now, when I first saw the sneak peek, which starts off in Arkham Asylum, actually it stays there.
Yeah.
It's just, her talking to the camera in her prison cell with Poison Ivy.
Yeah, breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Talking to the audience.
I wasn't exactly thrilled with the voice initially until like, I don't know, halfway through when she's talking about extremely gratuitous violence. Then I'm like, this is a pretty good voice.
To me, she sold me on, you're going to piss yourself.
It is a funny trailer. I watched it like 50 times and I was just laughing every time. And my wife was like, "What are you watching?" So I had to show her. But yeah, I like the animation style. I like the humor. I like the voice work. Lake Bell as Poison Ivy is fantastic. And then we even get a Batman cameo. And a dig at Deadpool. Nice Marvel dig right in there.
Ugh. Yeah, I hated that. Because as we all know, Deadpool was to get an animated series as well, and it was supposed to be produced and I think starring Donald Glover as Wade Wilson, and it fell through the cracks due to creative differences, allegedly.
Right.
But yeah, this looks good, I think. I do like Kaylee Cuoco's voice. It's surprising because her Big Bang Theory castmate, Melissa Rush, I think is how you pronounce her name, she was also Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
in the Harley and Batman movie that came out earlier this year, I think. Or last year.
I didn't see the film. I saw the trailer, though. Honestly, I didn't really care for the voice. I like this one much more.
Yeah. I wonder if they were competing for this role of Harley Quinn in this television show.
I wouldn't be surprised, along with Tara Strong and probably all the other voices wanted this role. But I'm kind of glad it went to Kelly Cuoco because she does have some nerd cred, some geek cred in there.
A little bit.
The cast, honestly, for this show, I don't know if you've seen the cast list. It's fantastic.
Really?
It has, Lake Bell, it has Jason Alexander from Seinfeld. It's just so many voices. It's going to be great. We don't know who everyone is going to play yet, but the cast is phenomenal.
And now we just have to wait a year to see it.
A whole freaking year. Yay. I guess they also give a dig to DC as well when they're talking about, shouldn't it be, dark and bleak and depressing?
Like other DC stuff?
Yeah, I just love Harley's reaction. She's like, that is a wonderful way to make movies and television shows. But not my show. There's so many,
very diplomatic kind of answer.
Yeah, there's a great energy to Kelly Cuoco's voice. And, she could hit the highs and she hits,
more serious notes.
She does a great job.
Yeah, and the logo is great, and she comments on that, and they're like,
Ooh,
Poison's
nice logo. Yeah,
it's Poison Ivy's like, they're gonna hate it.
It's very Suicide Squad, that logo. Very neon blue and pink.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. But I think that brings us to the end of the news. Let's go ahead and get into our review of the Venom film.
Let's do it.
All right, so Venom, quite the polarizing movie I've found. I think we're going to have listeners who are going to hate this movie. I think we're going to have listeners that absolutely love this movie. So what I don't want to have happen is you guys hate us for thinking that the movie was, mostly good.
Is there anyone who really loves this movie, though?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there are people out there who really love this movie. Because, it does have a lot going for it. Despite everything that we say regarding the movie's flaws, which there are a lot, and we'll get into that, Venom surpasses a lot of that negativity through what it does really well, and that is, the relationship between Venom and Eddie, and the characterization of Venom. I thought the film absolutely nailed the Venom character, especially in regards to the action, which, is the primary appeal of any superhero movie. As moviegoers and comic fans, we want to see these characters' personalities depicted accurately and marvel at the spectacle of their powers. And I think in that regard, I think this movie succeeded. And just a forewarning to those who haven't seen the film, this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the film yet, go ahead and turn the podcast off now. Don't listen to the review. Maybe go see the film if you want to. If you don't want to,
I think I would recommend it.
I would totally recommend it. Go see it. What are you doing? If you don't want to, what are you doing?
Yeah, go, don't listen to what everyone else is saying. Go see it for yourself because you might enjoy it.
The reaction that I get most often that I've heard is a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think almost everybody I talked to has said that. So whatever you're thinking it's going to be if you haven't seen it, it's going to be better than that.
Was it just the Lady Gaga fans who were telling everyone it was just going to be the worst piece of shit ever?
No, there were legit reviewers who were coming down on this movie pretty hard. And, overall, the film got a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is much lower than what it should have gotten.
Yeah, I agree.
But as you know, sometimes popular culture goes to a movie with somewhat of an agenda. I think a lot of people were turned off by the trailers for this film and therefore kind of wanted to see it fail. Maybe also because it wasn't, part of the Spider-Man universe. It has nothing to do with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, there are reasons for people to want to see this movie not do well, but it has been doing well. It broke box office records, made over 80 million, I think, if the numbers came in correctly.
Yep. And it was over 200 million worldwide, I believe, 213 or something.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it did better than Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's going to get a sequel. And I think the best thing that could be said about this film is that knowing that it's going to get a sequel now, I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, it's a good starting point. It's a good launching pad.
For the franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What did you think of the action and the spectacle?
I don't know if I would agree that the action was that great. To me, it's just one step above Transformers. The two big action scenes, the one in the lobby, it was full of smoke. It was kind of hard to see what was going on. And then the other one, the final fight, Venom and Riot looked so similar. And I was afraid this was going to happen in the trailers, but, it's just so much CG. It just makes my eyes bleed. That being said, it was passable. It wasn't the worst action I've ever seen. It was just passable.
I would have to disagree in that I don't think I was ever confused by the action. I found it easy to follow in both of those major scenes. And I thought it was a highlight of the film. I thought they were really well done. The animation was on point, I think, for the character and how he moved and how his liquid biomass worked and everything like that.
There was one cool action scene that I thought that worked, and that was, before he emerged fully as Venom in Eddie Brock's apartment,
right,
when he was taking out the thugs. I thought that was a cool action scene. Just seeing the different ways he was using the symbiote, like from there all the way to the motorcycle.
It was kind of extremely versatile.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I want a symbiote. Give me one.
It could do a lot of different things, for sure. Venom was so cool. I think one of the problems with the movie was that it did take half of the film's runtime to actually see the Venom character fully realized, which, is pretty typical of origin story films.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems with origin films, is that you have to kind of get to know the character behind the mask before you care about the hero wearing it. And I guess that's not a problem so much as it's kind of just old at this point. We've had so many superhero films throughout these past decades that the origin stories are pretty formulaic. You have this guy who discovers this incredible power, learns how to use the power, and then fights the bad guy. They find a good way to circumvent that lately in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with both Spider-Man and Black Panther, and that they establish their characters in other films before giving them their solo films. So by the time they get their solo films, the character's already established.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this case, that wasn't what happened, and it was 45 minutes of just Eddie Brock with no Venom.
But that's not necessarily even a bad thing, too, because I definitely think that Tom Hardy gave a good performance here.
Oh, definitely.
I think it was a good performance.
I found it intriguing.
I'm not 100%, but I think
it was a good performance. Everything that you saw there, I guarantee you, was intentional. I read a lot of people saying that they laughed at many parts of this movie that were perhaps unintentionally hilarious. But I don't understand how you can question if the film's attempts at humor were intentional or not, because the film obviously does not take itself 100% seriously.
No.
I found it to be very self-aware. It's trying to, kind of send up the typical conventions of modern superhero films with its darker, unconventional subject matter. And it kind of takes a sort of schlocky monster movie tone in some parts. But, I mean, is there any doubt that this was on purpose, given, the director is Ruben Fleischer, who directed Zombieland, after all, which was a send-up of zombie films.
Yeah.
Everyone who's questioning whether or not they should laugh, the answer is yes. It's supposed to be a dark comedy mixed in with a superhero action film.
There was a lot of comedy in it, more than I thought there was going to be.
Right.
And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes I kind of felt like it was a little juvenile, like when Venom calls Eddie Brock a pussy.
I thought that was funny.
No one in my theater laughed.
Really?
No one.
I've seen the movie twice now, and I think both times everyone in the theater chuckled at it.
Really? Well, I saw it with a pretty small crowd. Like I saw it on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
There weren't many people in the screening I saw. So
yeah. The tone of the film, it has humor. It is a little bit two-dimensional and comic booky because of that monster movie tone. And like you compare that to the more three-dimensional fleshed out characters that we've been growing accustomed to seeing in like the Marvel films, it felt kind of out of its time. Because the film didn't take itself so seriously, it did somewhat feel like some of the superhero films from the early part of the century, like Blade 2. And that was another good film, also dark, also didn't take itself too seriously.
I agree.
Prior to Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, a lot of studios just didn't know how to tackle the subject matter in a credible manner, and that was likely the main setback here with this movie, I think. And why some people even compared it to like Catwoman and Daredevil and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really get those comparisons again. To me, that's really, really harsh, actually, especially the Catwoman one. But
have they not seen Catwoman recently? Because that movie is a fucking abomination.
It is freaking ferocious. Is that a word, ferocious?
Sure, you just made a word.
No,
you don't want to?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
It is fucking atrocious.
Yeah. I think the reason Venom didn't come across like those other films so much to me, with its tone and everything, is because with a character like Venom, you can actually get away with that easier, that tone, because of the somewhat over-the-top nature of the character. He's an outer space alien creature with a grossly exaggerated grin full of shark-like teeth that bite people's heads off, It's a long ways away from a super soldier fighting Hitler in World War II.
Yeah.
I think what people want, what I certainly wanted, was a certain amount of tongue-in-cheek element to the story to keep it from being a straight-up horror film. Though, a horror film could have been interesting too. But in the comics, some of my favorite Venom moments are when he's acting weird or sweet or something other than straight up monstrous. It's those quirky moments that add depth to him. He's always been a different sort of Clintar alien in the comics than, his alien brethren. And I think they captured that really well here.
They said he was a loser.
Right.
He admitted to being a loser.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
I'm somewhat of a loser on my planet. One of my favorite memories of reading Venom in the comics were during his team up with Spider-Man when they first went up against Carnage. And while Venom was certainly sinister in that story, where he's like constantly telling Carnage that he's going to kill him and things like that, there was a nice moment where they were swinging toward Madison Square Garden where Carnage was. And Spider-Man's kind of internalizing how weird it is to be teaming up with Venom, And meanwhile, Venom is singing Strangers in the Night. It's just hilarious. That's kind of like the quirkiness of the character. Those are my favorite moments with him, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't too, I'd never read a comic with Venom, I don't think. Maybe I have. I don't remember. But those moments, where he's like telling Eddie Brock to like say you're sorry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It definitely did sort of like challenge my expectations of the character.
Yeah.
Because when I think of Venom, I do think of just, like this badass monster, not as someone who's kind of almost goofy in a way.
Right. Love that guy. Love that character. I think that the dark humor was well balanced with the sci-fi action. I think overall the film was pretty well balanced and palatable for a mainstream audience. Though if it were rated R and it showed Venom actually eating his enemies and had more adult language and, stuff in the vein of Deadpool, it might have actually been a better film.
I agree.
But possibly only marginally so, I think.
I'm surprised you can't show someone biting someone else's head off in a PG-13 film. I was like, what?
As long as you don't show blood, right?
The dumb.
But they were so subtle about it here that I wasn't even 100% sure during those moments if their heads were actually bitten off.
It was like, did that just happen?
Yeah. They really moved the camera away from it quick. But in the end, I think I'd rather sacrifice the gore and keep the potential of a Venom Spider-Man team up.
True.
It may be wishful thinking, but it's not an impossibility.
They're on opposite sides of the country. I mean.
Right. And my guess is that maybe in a sequel to Venom, he's going to fight Carnage, and maybe Carnage is going to go like across the country on a killing spree. Venom is going to chase him to New York because he feels responsible, being that Carnage is his offspring, and maybe like have a Spider-Man team up kind of moment where at one point maybe Eddie is knocked unconscious and the symbiote has to attach itself to Spider-Man for a while. I mean, that might be the best adaptation of symbiote Spidey that we get within this universe, within this franchise.
Yeah.
And, given how they treated the source material here, I mean, if that's the best that we could get, then I'll take it, because I think we have a great realization of the character of Venom within this film, one that could be definitely carried forward in future films.
I think they were trying to go for something Marvel-esque, and that's why they didn't go the rated R route.
Well, I don't think the film itself was Marvel-esque at all.
I think it was an attempt to be Marvel-esque.
I don't think it was.
You don't think?
No, I think it was a purposeful attempt to not be like Marvel. I think the director has stated as such, actually. And I think he did a good job of making the tone dark and edgy, but also just on the borderline of possibly being able to be included in the mainstream Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Spider-Man universe. Mm-hmm. Sony Spider-Man, whatever the hell it's called.
Right.
Yeah. I think what primarily didn't work with this movie goes back to the self-aware tone of the film. Some of the dialogue and the character reactions and the characters themselves weren't real feeling.
Some of the acting.
Yeah. Especially Carlton Drake, the cardboard cutout villain, or Anne, the cardboard cutout ex-girlfriend.
Right.
I think the only one that actually felt real here was Eddie Brock. And maybe actually Jenny Slate's character, Dr. Skirth.
Right.
I think she felt nuanced enough to be real as well.
Yeah, it was sad when she died.
Yeah. But let's go into the character breakdown. And we'll start off with Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock and Venom are going to be separate in this character breakdown because they were very separate characters in the film. As far as Eddie Brock goes, I think Tom Hardy's performance was intriguing, as I said before. I think he elevated the material he was given by injecting just a metric ton of nuance, which made him feel believable. And it was only because of Brock's performance that I believed his relationship with Anne, especially in the scene when he visited her apartment and met her new boyfriend. That felt real.
That was a good scene.
She was like Why are you here, Eddie? Because I miss you. It wasn't too long ago that we were going to get married. I was wondering if we might find our way back to that. That line, I thought, almost belonged in a different movie, you know? It was the only time that I thought that these two actually had viable chemistry and a viable relationship at one point.
That was one of my more favorite Eddie Brock character scenes. I mean, the first half of this film, you know, when they're setting up the peril of Eddie Brock and just like how his choices have consequences and stuff like that and everything that stemmed from that, I thought this was all fantastic setup.
Yeah, it really was.
In a way, like, I think a lot of my problems don't really come about until he gets the symbiote. Because before that, it was a compelling film. Eddie Brock was a compelling character.
Yeah, I think because of Tom Hardy's performance. He's such a great actor. He really makes you empathize with him. And on top of that, he's fun to watch, I think.
I thought his voice was going to be grating based on the trailers.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind it. He sells his voices for sure.
Yeah. Eddie Brock's character arc was strange, though. Like, he started out on top with his investigative reports on the Eddie Brock show. He started out giving a shit about his fellow man. You know, standing up for others seemed to be his life's purpose, because he's a good guy, you know? But then he stooped low to steal a document from his girlfriend to support his agenda against Carlton Drake, then hit rock bottom, losing his job, his relationship, and his home, which somehow caused him to forego his life's purpose and be done with giving a shit about his fellow man, which is what he explicitly told Dr. Skirth. And it was weird because it seemed like he resented society for his own fuck-ups.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of wish they would have set up Carlton Drake as more of a villain before Eddie was saying how much he didn't like him.
Right.
Because by that moment, I was like, well, why? He seems like not a horrible guy. And even in the interview, like, Eddie Brock was the one being the asshole, you know?
Right.
I didn't quite understand that. But you're right. He turned his back on society for his poor choice. And that was hard to relate to.
Yeah. So he's a flawed character, which also makes him feel real, but yeah, again, hard to relate to. But on the Golden Gate Bridge, which is a fantastic scene where it almost seems like he's contemplating suicide.
Yeah.
Which is from the comics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why he went to the church, was to ask for forgiveness for what he was about to do. And that's where he got the symbiote in the comics at the church. But yeah, it was a great scene. It's where he had his change of heart and decides to investigate the Life Foundation and help others after all. I think it would have been a little bit more helpful if the movie had been more clear with how one makes the leap from taking down villains with investigative journalism to taking down villains with vigilantism. Because I wasn't sure if he necessarily showed vigilante tendencies prior to getting the symbiote.
Right. No, I mean, he didn't. He let that one guy, you know, extort the bodega owner.
Right, yeah. That would have been an interesting exploration, even if briefly. But after his change of heart on the bridge, at that point, there wasn't much more character growth for Eddie Brock, and the growth really shifted at that point to the symbiote Venom.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Venom, who was voiced by Tom Hardy. And the character of Venom himself is really what saves this film and makes it as fun and enjoyable as it is.
Well, it's what you went to see, you know? He's the titular character.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much joy I get out of just seeing that huge-ass grin. and the voice, Tom Hardy nailed it. And though he was a blast to watch, it was hard to understand Venom's motivations, I think. Because let's follow his arc. So first, Venom wants to get Drake's rocket, just like Riot, to reconnect with his brethren on the comet and invade Earth.
Then all of a sudden...
Yeah, at some point, Venom rejects the idea and decides he's instead going to live on Earth because he likes it here and because of Eddie.
He says that explicitly he made the decision because of Eddie, but we don't know when that happened or why that happened.
Yeah. Other than, he's like, on my planet, I'm kind of a loser. And that's kind of the most explanation we get as to his change of heart.
Right. Which to me, like, that was laughable. I was like, what? Okay.
Like, I'd rather hang out with you here than be with my loser siblings or whatever.
Yeah,
or be a loser with my siblings,
Yeah, that was a problem for me. I mean, the symbiotes, like, motivations, we don't learn until far down the road in this film. Like, initially, like, the stakes of the film are that Eddie's gonna die, but it's not until, like, the final battle almost that it's like, hey, the symbiotes are gonna bring back an entire planet of symbiotes and take over our planet. That you're like, oh, too little, too late.
Maybe not too little, but definitely a little bit too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, but overall with Venom, again, he's the star of the show. The reason why I get so much joy out of this movie and why I liked it more than, like, say, Ant-Man and the Wasp or something like that is because of the Eddie Brock Venom relationship. It's like a buddy movie.
It is. It absolutely is a buddy movie. Yeah. One thing that confused me is, like, the knowledge that Venom had, like, right off the bat, like 60 gigahertz or something like that.
Or
it's
the
like,
60 gigahertz frequency? Or
Yeah.
60 megahertz frequency? I don't know.
and it's like, how long have you been on Earth that you, like, know words like that? I guess
Yeah.
just being inside of Eddie. But then
he didn't know some things about Eddie that he maybe should have known.
exactly. Yeah.
So it maybe, like, he was just reading the wrong pages on Eddie's brain or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard to know. Let's talk about Anne Wang, played by Michelle Williams. I thought she did a commendable job with the material she was given. I think a lot of those lines would have been a hard sell, like, hospital, right now, or Eddie, I think I just ate a guy's head.
Yeah.
But despite her being an overall, like, cliche girlfriend type, I thought she was likable.
I didn't really care for the performance, honestly. Like,
No?
at all.
Really?
Like, at all. I think she did a horrible job.
What?
She did a horrible job.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I liked it.
Her reactions did not seem believable in almost every way, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think her actions were believable. I think most of her reactions were kind of tongue-in-cheek. I think her performance was a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's what it felt like, for sure. Like, she knew she was in this movie that was beneath her or something like that. I don't know.
But I liked that. I don't know. I guess it depends on what you enjoy as a moviegoer. Like, to me, I appreciated the subtle tongue-in-cheek moments in this film. But, if you take your superhero movies super seriously, then you may not enjoy that.
And I do.
I really like her turn as She-Venom. That was something that I was not expecting to see in this film.
Is that from the comics?
It is, yeah. And has taken on the Venom symbiote several times. And I kind of want to see more of her, actually. Is that weird? Like, I remember seeing She-Venom for the first time in the comics, and I was like, whoa, that freaky-ass monster has a nice body. I learned something about myself today.
Jeez.
She was super cool, though. I like the voice that she had, where she's like, hello, Eddie. And the kiss, it's just such a bizarre fucking moment.
It was. It was awkward.
It was almost brilliant in its weirdness, I think. Let's move on to Carlton Drake, played by Riz Ahmed. I think I mentioned earlier that I thought he was pretty cardboard cutout, though I think Riz did the best he could given the material, like Michelle Williams.
I think he did a good acting job.
Yeah.
I think he did a really good acting job. The character,
He's a little bland.
very, very,
Like-
a god complex character, generic god complex character who just kind of hates humanity for what it is, and
Or thinks he's above it.
yeah, absolutely.
He's supposed to be this unscrupulous, ambitious, super logical villain, but without any nuance, like Eddie Brock, he mainly just comes across as super generic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, he did have those few interesting lines about being God or something, but in the end, it wasn't enough to save him from being described as mostly bland.
Right. And he does make some weird choices, and if I was working for him, I'd be like, I'm not working for this guy anymore. Jenny Slate totally had the right idea. It's like, well, fuck this guy. He's weird.
Wouldn't want him as a boss. So that's it for the characters. I don't think there were any other standout characters to talk about, but let's get into these highlights from the film, the story highlights. So the movie starts off with the rocket crash on Earth from the Life Foundation.
Yeah.
And it felt very X-Files to me. Like, I could have swore I was watching an episode of the X-Files.
I agree.
They had a nice little Easter egg in that first scene, though, with J. Jonah Jameson's son.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't make that connection.
Yeah, because in the comics, he's an astronaut. And actually, so what they did with this movie is they took the animated series origin, where in the 90s cartoon, Venom didn't come from the Secret Wars event. He came
Right.
down with John Jameson from space. And that's what they did here.
Yeah.
So while Venom's origin here is a radical departure from the comics, and I think a lot of people maybe wanted to see the symbiote on Spider-Man first, it wasn't entirely unfaithful to things that we've seen before that have been praised, such as the animated series.
Right.
So that was kind of nice.
Isn't his son like a werewolf?
Yeah, in the comics, John Jameson is the Wolfman, or the Man-Wolf. I forget what they call him. But yeah, he's a werewolf. And he gets that ability from his visit to the moon, which is kind of weird. From then, I don't think there were too many highlights of the film up until about the midpoints where we get the apartment fight. which we talked briefly about before. Really like the versatility that was shown here. And this is when Venom really starts speaking to him. And, you know, we get to know the character. Eddie beats these dudes up, and Venom tells them to, you know, pile their bodies in the corner and bite their heads off and stuff.
Right.
And it was like, what the fuck did he just say?
Exactly.
And then he jumps out the window, and, you know, we think that Eddie's going to die, but the symbiote saves him and swings him into this other building.
That was cool.
And then they start shooting at him, but, you know, Eddie's able to, like,
put up a shield.
That was cool. You just start seeing all these amazing moments in succession.
I think one highlight before that action scene, if I may real quick, was when he first comes to his apartment after he's been infected, and he's just like eating chicken from the trash can. He's just like feeling really terrible. Like, you really feel how bad he feels. It was like good camera work.
Good acting too.
Yeah, really good acting.
When he puked, I was like, I wonder if he actually puked. Cause
I know.
I don't know, maybe the sound effects, or maybe it was the lurch he did when he gagged.
Yeah.
But it looked like real puking.
But no, when he looked in the mirror and like Venom's eyes come up for the first time and you just hear him scream, that was like my scream as well. I was like, ah! He just like falls into the tub. I thought that was funny. It was funny and scary. It was just a good moment.
Yeah. After the apartment fight scene, we go into the motorcycle chase, which I thought was pretty cool. It was a little bit reminiscent of the San Francisco chase scene that we just saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
But I maybe actually liked this one a little bit more.
I did, yeah.
There were a lot of different things that the symbiote was able to do. You know, he was able to push cars aside. You know, he was able to like grab onto railings and jump over bridges and move steering wheels of the enemy cars.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest moments that he had kind of reminded me of the 89 Batman, where, you know, the Batmobile shot out this grappling hook that latched onto a street pole and like made him turn a tight 180-degree turn.
It was a really tight turn.
Yeah. It was almost the same thing where the symbiote latched out, grabbed onto a street pole, and skid Eddie Brock onto his side, but was protecting him as like a cushion on the ground, and then brought him back up after he made the turn.
Yeah.
That was one of the more intriguing uses of the power that I've never seen in the comics or anything like that. But yeah, Venom can almost do anything in that regard. Like, he was a shield, he was offensive, he was defensive. It was just such a cool power set.
It is really cool. One thing that really bothered me during this scene, though, was just how destructive the Life Foundation guys were. Like, they just did not give a fuck.
No.
Like, they were blowing shit up with these drones, which even then, it's like, those have got to be expensive drones.
Right? And also, why you're trying to blow up the guy who has the symbiote, right?
Exactly.
Are you trying to kill your symbiote?
And they're, like, just, like, plowing into cars and stuff. Like, how are they going to explain that to the cops? I was thinking that the whole time. Like, when this finishes and, like, the cops come for you, what are you going to say?
Right. It's going to be one hell of an investigation.
Exactly.
I don't envy the police officer that has to do the paperwork for this. For sure.
But no, like, you know, when it does end, we get the reveal of Venom, the full body, like, envelopment.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I thought that was really cool.
And then he bites the dude's head off.
Yes.
That was great.
Yeah. And right after that, you know, he, like, swims to that buoy, and that's the first time we see, like, Venom's, like, head come out and, like, just start talking to Eddie.
Yeah.
Is that from the comics? Did you like that?
Yes. Yeah, he's done that in the comics before.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely has his own face, and he's spoken to him like that before. I liked that scene. I especially like some of Venom's dialogue where Eddie was like, "Are you going to eat more people?" And Venom was like, "Most likely." I like that a lot.
Yeah.
He's such a great character, especially in one of the later scenes where Eddie goes to his old place of work, the network, and he and Venom climb up the building.
Yeah.
And Venom gets to the top, and it's just kind of like this iconic image where he's looking over San Francisco and like admiring the beauty of the city.
Yeah.
And everything. And he's like, it'll be a shame to see it all destroyed. And Eddie's like, what? And then the plane flies by and shocks the symbiote off of him. And like, never before in a movie have I ever felt so much like I was falling as that scene right there.
I know. That's like my worst nightmare.
It was like well shot. Like he's sliding down the side of this building and he's pretty sure he's going to die because he's afraid of heights and everything like that.
Yeah, it was a good camera angle. Just like you see the feet. It's almost like a POV shot.
Right.
You see his feet dangling and it's just like the ground is just coming up towards him and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. But luckily he gets rescued. And then from there, he goes into the lobby fight downstairs.
Yeah.
And I really liked the effects there because, you know, so far we've seen Venom a lot in shadow and in darkness and things like that. We got a few really good money shots here, despite, you know, there being a lot of smoke and stuff like that. But when like the strobe effect would go off with the flashbangs and you see him react to that. And even in the thermal vision in the sniper's camera, I swear that was Venom straight lifted off of the comic book pages. I was so happy with that scene. And how he was like so vicious. He's like picking guys up, jumping in the air and like spinning around and like throwing them away and things like that. It was awesome. Like leaping up onto the rafters and like ripping off beams and throwing them at people.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, I don't care what happens with the rest of this movie. I'm definitely satisfied with at least this moment.
It reminded me kind of like almost like Batman. Like he was like a ninja, just like pulling guys out of the smoke and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
There's something frightening about that. The attacker you can't see.
Right. So later on, he goes to the hospital and then he gets captured by the Life Foundation and then he gets rescued by She-Venom. I think we already spoke about that. I really thought it was going to be the dog in the forest, but I was really glad that it was She-Venom because that was such a fantastic Easter egg. I really like how protective Venom at that point gets of Anne, where like she wants to follow along and he's like, no, it's going to get ugly. And Eddie's like, she can fight ugly. And she's like, yeah, I can fight ugly. And he was like, not today. And he like runs off and she's like, that's bullshit. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But also great character moment.
I don't know if that was funny.
It was funny.
Why was Venom more concerned about her than Eddie?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe because Eddie knows her better? And maybe he didn't want to do it alone or something? I don't know. That is a good question. That's valid. Let's go to the final fight. The setup for the final fight was a little off, I think. Like, can you just really throw together a last-minute rocket launch without a crew or anything like that?
Those things have to be, like, exactly timed.
Right.
Because there's a ton of math involved.
Right. Like, is the Earth facing the right direction for when you launch off? Are you going to be...
You're going to be wasting fuel.
Are you going to be heading toward the comet itself, right? Or are you
right.
do you have enough fuel in case you need to make a correction like that or something? It was a little weird. But it was cool how Riot just kind of, like, took out the entire mission control with those giant like blades.
I don't know, man. I'm sure one of those computers was really important like, for the mission.
Yeah. Anne uses one of those computers later on to activate the PA system, which startles the symbiotes later on during their fight.
And then she has that horrible line.
She's like, told you I could fight ugly or something
like
that. So the fight itself was so cool. It started off on that bridge connecting the launch pad to the station, and Venom's chasing Riot on there. And they have a fight where like Venom was like, he has shit you wouldn't believe or something like that.
He has shit you've never seen before.
Yeah. And Riot really did. Like he busted out some sweet ass moves that I've never really imagined a symbiote could do. Like he had that swinging mace, and like there was one part where he like shoved his spikes into the bridge below them and was like popping them up, trying to impale Venom, but Venom was like doing all these crazy cool backflips and like swinging off the bridge and back on and things like that.
Yeah.
It was just such a cool fight scene between those characters, I thought. I really liked it.
Do you wish they would have gone with like a different symbiote, like the blue one or the yellow one?
Yes, I do. While Riot did look cool, that kind of like silver gray gunmetal finish kind of thing, I wish they would have gone somebody who is more easily discernible from Venom. Maybe somebody like Scream, who actually was, I would say, the primary member of those Life Foundation symbiotes, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She was like the head of that group. Like the other four, they kind of actually, they merged into one symbiote called Hybrid. They were kind of a little bit expendable. I think she had the unique look with the long hair and the fact that she was yellow and stuff like that. I think it would have been cool to see her as the villain, or at least have the symbiote be yellow, even if it wasn't Scream, even if it was still Riot or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just would have been cool. I think the other two symbiotes that the Life Foundation managed to capture, so they got 4 total. So they got Venom, we know that. One of them escaped, which was Riot, but the yellow one and the blue one, I think that was Scream, and the other one was Agony. Phage and Lasher were nowhere to be seen. It would have been cool to see them here too, especially since they seemed so expendable. But back to the fight. After they finally get to the actual rocket and they're like trying to rip each other apart and stuff like that, there's a weird moment where Riot absorbs Venom and they became like one being for like a second before Anne was able to separate them with the noise.
Right. But he had the same look later on too, so I wasn't sure like if they were still combined or not. Right. I don't know, that part was kind of confusing.
Yeah, those like little tendrils that were coming off of his back.
Yeah. So there were 2 bodies in one body?
Yeah. I'm not sure how the physics of that worked. I'm not sure how the physics of Venom works to begin with. So because sometimes you see Venom being ripped apart and Eddie Brock's face is around like Venom's like chest area. And sometimes you see Venom's face being ripped off and Eddie Brock's face is right beneath it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell exactly where Eddie Brock is inside of Venom at any given moment. I assume that when the 2 merged, Eddie and Drake were like just kind of like smashed up right against each other. Real awkward.
It's like, hey.
But the fight that the two had when the symbiotes were off was pretty interesting. Like Eddie Brock had this like weird martial arts moment where he like slow motion spun around and punched Drake right in the face.
Yeah, there was a lot of slow motion in this film.
Yeah. But I like the way that Venom ultimately defeated Riot using the symbiote's weakness of fire, you know?
Yeah.
He destroyed the rocket's fuel tanks as it was flying up, and the whole thing exploded and nearly killed Venom himself.
Do you understand why Venom like told Anne earlier like all of his weaknesses? I thought that was weird. That was awkward.
I think it was more for the audience.
There was a lot of like...
But also, I think he liked Anne. He even stated that much, and that's why he told Eddie to get in the car. I think he had a soft spot for Anne, and it may have been grafted on from Eddie's memories of her or something like that.
I'll buy that. That's a good...
So he was like super vulnerable and honest with her, basically.
Huh.
And that takes us to one of the last highlights of the movie, when they're talking on the steps. I thought it was so fucking hilarious when all of a sudden Venom's voice pops back in, and he's like, look at her, she doesn't even realize that we're going to get her back. He's like, we love you, Anne. It was so great. Venom playing Cupid is just awesome. But the very final scene, the mid-credits scene of the movie, is where we're introduced to Carnage, or Cletus Cassidy, being played by Woody Harrelson. That scene felt a little bit off to me.
It was bad. It was really bad.
I don't know if it was Harrelson's acting, or if it was his wig, or if it was his dialogue. It was probably a combination of all three.
They were trying to make it seem creepy, but it wasn't, like, at all.
It was tongue-in-cheek. Maybe. See, that I'm not sure on, because Woody Harrelson did look fucking batshit crazy out of his mind, but not entirely in a scary way.
No.
In somewhat a funny way, I think.
They could have done a much better job, like, setting the atmosphere for this. Because it was almost comical, the way the guard was talking with Eddie. And by the time you get to Cletus, and he's, like, writing Eddie's name in blood, and it's just like, you know, the things he's saying, it's, do you want me to turn on the serial killer? I could talk about, like, the Dada patterns of arterial spray. It's just like, who wrote this?
I think they were going for Silence of the Lambs, and they got more Suicide Squad than Silence of the Lambs, I think.
Okay. Low blow. Wow.
But that does it for the review. I think we hit everything, all the story highlights, talked about all the characters, and gave our overall thoughts. I give this movie 3.5 stars. I liked it. It had its flaws, but overall, I think it had more going for it than against it, because I came away from the theater noting that I had a really good time.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way of putting it. It did have more going for it than against it. I definitely didn't hate the film, but also wasn't, you know, like some of the greater comic book films that we've kind of become accustomed to recently.
Yeah, not even close. But is it as close to being as good as a Venom film as you can get? Maybe.
I agree that, like, if it was rated R, they had more language, they had more violence, then it would have been.
And maybe if it took somewhat more of a horror route, I think that would have been a little bit more compelling.
Yeah, for sure.
But for what we got, I had a blast. What's your star rating?
Also 3.5.
All right, that does it for the review. Go ahead and let us know what you guys thought by reaching out to us via social media on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We're on all those platforms, and you can find us there quickly by visiting dynamicduel.com.
Yeah, we have all of our links to our social media accounts, as well as a link to our merchandise store, which we have, you know, various merchandise like t-shirts and mugs and pillows
and wall hangings.
Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff.
Phone covers. You could buy phone covers there.
That's true. It has our no prize art on all of that stuff, but also, you know, like a few other illustrations that we've done.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Check it out for sure.
And as we've mentioned earlier in this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe to our podcast, especially on iTunes, to help us get to that 200 mark for Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a life goal to affect the tomato meter, guys. Help us realize that goal, please. All right, in our next episode, we will be reviewing a Constantine animated film that's coming out called City of Demons.
Right.
I think it was a web series that was coming out on CW Seed, but it's been compiled, I think, into a full-length feature film here.
Yeah, and there's additional footage. There's like almost a half hour of additional footage that wasn't seen in the web series.
Yeah.
And then CW is doing some big thing with it later on in the month too.
I think it's a way to kind of celebrate the fact that Matt Ryan is going to be joining the Legends of Tomorrow cast this season, which starts in a few weeks as well.
Yeah.
So this is like a big Constantine month.
Yeah.
So we're going to be reviewing that animated film, and we're also going to be doing a dual episode with Constantine versus Brother Voodoo later on this month. So look forward to that.
Yeah, and if Daredevil wasn't coming out, we also would have been reviewing the Keanu Reeves film, but I think we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, probably next Halloween time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does it for this episode. We'll talk to you guys in a week.
Up and away.
True believers.